Brussels, February 2011. The city is the center of one of the biggest political crises in Europe. Belgian protesters put up a rare show of a united Belgium. They are angry about another standstill in the formation of a coalition government. Brussels, summer 2011. Everything in the city seems back to normal. The capital's lively bars, stately buildings and peaceful parks. Belgium has now been without a government for over 14 months, a world record. The Belgians have once again resigned to waiting, while politicians keep fighting and trying to find a solution for the country's political deadlock.
I don't see any solution really, because it's impossible to separate, it's impossible to continue.
We go on living, but for some people it's very difficult not to have a government. Because the game is to separate and to win one round and not to make a country.
The controversial Flemish right-wing party Vlaams Belang is fighting for an independent Flanders. Party chairman Gerolf Annemans is the author of a new book that puts forward a plan for the orderly division of Belgium.
Belgium is a play, actually. It's a theatre play. And that's bad for the people because, in the meantime, the country is not governed.
This is not the first time Belgian politicians have been struggling to form a government. Franklin Roosevelt noticed the same problem 60 years ago during World War II when he said,
"In Belgium, there are two communities. One called the Walloons, and they speak French. The others are called Flemings, and they speak a kind of Low Dutch. They can't live together. After the war, we should make two states, one known as Wallonia and the other as Flemingia."
Uniting the 6 million Dutch-speaking Flemish and 5 million Francophone Walloons is getting more difficult every time. Apart from Brussels, that is bilingual, the Belgians live in clearly distinct unilingual regions. And this country has no national media, political parties, charities or universities.
Without having a federal language that enables us to communicate quite easily with each other, without federal political parties, there are very few things that are really binding this country together.
The separation of Belgium is not a new idea. Belgian politicians, citizens and journalists have been discussing this possibility over the last decades. The French television channel RTBF even showed a fake news bulletin announcing the independence of Flanders several years ago during another political crisis.
La Flandre va proclamer unilatéralement son indépendance. Vous l'avez compris, le moment est important. En clair, la Belgique en tant que telle n'existerait plus.
Ce qu'on sait, cela dit, c'est que l'Assemblée vient de voter également une constitution flamande qui aurait été depuis un certain temps en préparation.
Journalist Philip Abels has been living and working in the Belgian capital for more than 5 years now. He says that with this new crisis, it won't take long before the country will split up.
We will live the day that Belgium will stop to exist. Maybe not tomorrow, but then maybe next year, or maybe in 10 or 20 or 50 years. But it's not gonna be very, very long.
Flanders is richer, and it has increasingly demanded more autonomy. Last year's elections show that especially Flemish voters agree with the separatist sentiment. A large majority of the Dutch-speaking North voted for right-wing parties that stride for independence. The largest of these parties, N-VA, won the majority of Flemish votes. They say the country should slowly work towards a split-up, but disagree with any revolutionary actions.
Flemish identity is growing and Belgian identity is lowering. And the only moment that the Belgian identity comes up is when the Belgian football team has some success.
If this is true, what is stopping the majority of Belgium from going ahead and splitting the country into 2 or more separate states?
Brussels is the biggest obstacle for Belgium. If Brussels wouldn't exist, Belgium would have ceased to exist a long time ago. So Brussels is the only sort of thing that's keeping them together.
Brussels is an independent body within the Belgian Federation. It is home to the European Parliament and NATO headquarters. The capital has its own parliament, and during the last elections, the people in Brussels voted for an either independent European state or complete independence. Politicians have come forward with different solutions for Brussels if Belgium were to split up.
I think it would be wise if Brussels could stay in the influence of the two states. That means that we can govern together the independent Flanders and the independent Wallonia. But another model is that Brussels would be a region on its own.
Walloon politician Elio Di Rupo was appointed as negotiation leader for a second time in May. But he announced his resignations 2 months after that because he didn't manage to build bridges between Flemish and Walloon parties.
I think that a reform of Belgium is needed, one way or the other. So for me, it's not something you could or could not do. The question is, how do you do it, not do you do it?
Belgium was created by European superpowers in 1830. While this experiment may have succeeded in creating a country, has it accomplished creating a Belgian identity?
What is Belgian identity? I think it's the difference. Two countries in one land, Flemish and in Walloon.
Belgium identity is it's just that we are quite cool.
Way of life are quite similar, but a real identity, I don't think it exists here in Belgium.
I'm a Belgian, but I'm Flemish. My roots are Flemish.
For now, both Flemish and Walloons are faced with more waiting and possible new elections in the near future. But like other European countries, Belgium has to deal with the financial crisis, immigration issues, and an increasingly older population. And with these important political decisions having been left on the shelf for over 10 years, Belgium needs a political solution more than ever.